This is impossible! Chief Petty Officer Marcus Rodriguez's voice cracked with 4 hours of mounting frustration inside the classified vault at Naval Special Warfare Command in Coronado. The 28-year-old Navy SEAL stood in full tactical gear, staring at the massive Mosler safe that had defeated every attempt his elite team could devise. The safe was a relic from the Cold War era, 8 feet tall, 4 feet wide, with a mechanical combination lock that mocked their modern electronic warfare training. Advanced lock-picking tools, electronic bypass equipment, and digital stethoscopes lay scattered around like remnants of a failed siege. These weren't ordinary sailors. They were America's premier naval special operations force. Men who had breached compounds in Afghanistan and Iraq. Specialists trained to overcome any obstacle. Harold Hank Morrison had been watching the SEALs' futile efforts from his position near the cleaning supplies. At 78 years old, he looked exactly like his identification claimed, a civilian contractor responsible for facility maintenance. His weathered hands, stained with decades of cleaning chemicals and honest work, gripped a simple mop bucket. He wore his usual faded red work shirt that had survived more wash cycles than most sailors had deployments, blue jeans with permanent bleach stains, and worn sneakers. His gray beard was neatly trimmed, and his pale blue eyes held the quiet intelligence of someone who had spent a lifetime observing details others missed. Morrison had been employed at the Naval Special Warfare Facility for 10 years, maintaining buildings that housed America's most elite warriors. Petty Officer First Class Williams wiped sweat from his forehead, leaving streaks in the dust covering his face. "Chief, we've tried every technique in the manual. Digital stethoscope, manipulation tools, even thermal imaging. That safe isn't giving up its secrets." The other SEALs nodded grimly, their expensive equipment scattered around like evidence of professional humiliation. Morrison was invisible to most personnel, just another aging contractor keeping floors clean and facilities operational. The SEALs had barely acknowledged his presence during their 4-hour battle, treating him with casual dismissal that young warriors often showed elderly civilians who worked around military installations. Lieutenant Commander Jackson finally noticed the old man standing nearby with his cleaning equipment. "Sir, this is a restricted area. You need to clear the facility until we complete this training exercise." Morrison nodded politely but made no move to leave. "Just working, son. Don't mind me." His voice carried calm authority that seemed out of place from a janitor. Jackson's patience was wearing thin after hours of failure and pressure from command leadership. "Sir, I need you to move to a safe distance. We're conducting classified training on sensitive equipment." Morrison looked at the massive safe, then at the scattered tools, then back at the frustrated SEALs. "That's quite a safe you're working on there. Mosler Double Guard Supreme, if I'm not mistaken. They stopped making those in 1987. Several SEALs paused their equipment checks, surprised by the old man's specific knowledge. Rodriguez looked up with irritation. "How would you know about safe specifications, old man?" Morrison's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his posture. The slight slouch of an elderly maintenance worker straightened into something that looked suspiciously like military bearing. Morrison walked closer to the massive safe, his eyes scanning its surface with methodical attention of someone conducting professional assessment. "Mind if I ask what approach you're trying?" Lieutenant Commander Jackson's jaw tightened with mounting frustration. "Sir, that's classified training information. This is SEAL team business, and you need to clear the area immediately." Morrison remained where he was, studying the safe with patient attention of someone who had seen similar challenges before. "Manipulation, drilling, or bypass?" Morrison asked quietly, his technical language causing several SEALs to exchange glances. Chief Williams looked up from his electronic equipment with surprise. "How would you know about safe penetration techniques?" Morrison's expression didn't change, but his voice carried undertones that made the SEALs pause their work. I've worked with similar systems before, son. Different missions, different decades, but same basic principles. Jackson's patience finally snapped. Sir, I don't care what systems you think you've worked with. This is a Mosler safe protecting classified materials, not some storage locker. Morrison's mind suddenly drifted to another time, another place entirely. The California facility faded away, replaced by the controlled tension of a classified operation in Eastern Europe. He wasn't 78 anymore. He was 32, a senior chief petty officer with naval intelligence, part of a joint CIA-Navy operation to extract critical documents from a Soviet embassy safe during the height of the Cold War. The year was 1983, and Morrison was operating under deep cover, tasked with penetrating security systems that protected some of the most sensitive intelligence in the world. In that long-ago mission, Morrison had spent weeks studying Mosler safe construction, learning every mechanical detail from engineers who had designed similar systems for both American and Soviet installations. The training took place in a classified facility where CIA technical specialists taught Navy personnel to defeat security measures using techniques that officially didn't exist. Morrison remembered the weight of knowing that failure meant not just mission compromise, but potential international incident that could escalate Cold War tensions. His instructor, a former bank engineer, had explained the fundamental weakness. Every mechanical lock has tolerances, Chief. The tumblers wear in predictable patterns after 20 years of use. Listen for the friction, not the gates. Back in the present facility, Morrison's eyes slowly refocused on the young SEALs surrounding him. The thing about Mosler safes from that era, Morrison said quietly, his voice carrying authority that made nearby personnel stop their activities, is that they have a manufacturing quirk. The combination mechanism has a slight mechanical bias that shows up after about 20 years of use. Rodriguez felt his authority being challenged by an elderly janitor in front of his team. "Sir, this is classified SEAL training. I'm going to need you to clear the area immediately." Morrison remained exactly where he was, his pale blue eyes studying the combination dial with methodical attention that spoke of decades of experience. The third number in the sequence always settles about 2 clicks past center. It's not in any manual because the manufacturer never wanted to admit the flaw. Morrison slowly rolled up his left sleeve, revealing a faded tattoo of a Navy SEAL trident, barely visible due to age and sun damage. Chief Williams stared at the faded trident tattoo with growing confusion. "You're claiming to be a SEAL?" Morrison smiled with patient understanding. "Was, son. Long time ago, when the teams were smaller and the missions were different." He pointed to the safe's combination dial. "Mechanical tolerance stacking. The gears wear in a predictable pattern that creates a slight bias in the final tumbler. Your electronic equipment is looking for standard gate sounds, but this safe is old enough to have developed its own signature." The confrontation had reached what appeared to be an absolute stalemate when Petty Officer Second Class Martinez made a decision that would fundamentally change everything. "Chief," Martinez said carefully to Williams, "what if I contact Command Security just to verify his clearance status?" Williams nodded curtly, thinking this would finally resolve the situation and prove the old man was just a confused civilian contractor. Martinez walked toward communications equipment, but instead of calling Command Security immediately, he decided to contact Master Chief Valdez at Group Headquarters first. "Master Chief, this is Martinez at the training facility," he said when Valdez answered. "We have a developing situation with an elderly civilian contractor claiming to be former Navy SEAL with knowledge of safe penetration techniques. Says his name is Harold Morrison, and he's talking about Mosler safe manufacturing flaws that aren't in our technical manuals." There was an unusually long pause on the other end of the line, so long that Martinez wondered if the connection had been lost. When Master Chief Valdez finally spoke again, his voice carried tension Martinez had never heard before. "Martinez, did you say Harold Morrison, former SEAL working with safes?" The silence stretched for 5 full seconds. Sweet Mother of God, Valdez said, and Martinez could hear papers rustling frantically in the background. Martinez, listen to me very carefully and do exactly what I tell you. Do not allow anyone to lay a single hand on Harold Morrison. Do you understand me completely? Not a single finger on that man. Martinez felt his stomach drop into his boots. In 5 years of knowing Master Chief Valdez, he had never heard him sound genuinely panicked about anything. Master Chief, what's happening here? I need to make several urgent phone calls immediately. Martinez, that man is definitely not a confused civilian contractor. Morrison had quietly approached the safe and was examining the combination dial with practiced efficiency. Mind if I give it a try, son? Morrison asked Lieutenant Commander Jackson, his voice carrying calm confidence that seemed to fill the room. I think I might be able to help with your training exercise. Jackson's face reddened with mounting frustration. Sir, this is classified SEAL training on restricted equipment. Absolutely not. Morrison's hands moved to the combination dial with movements so practiced they seemed automatic. The manufacturer's default was usually based on the serial number plus a date code. This particular model, serial number suggests it was installed in 1985. Before anyone could stop him, Morrison began turning the dial with precise, confident movements. Right to 47, left past 0 to 83, right to 21. The massive safe's mechanism engaged with a deep, satisfying click that echoed through the suddenly silent room. Morrison pulled the heavy door open with effort, revealing the classified training materials inside. The SEAL stood frozen in amazement as the impossible had just happened. Their 4-hour challenge had been solved by an elderly janitor in less than 30 seconds. Before anyone could process what had just occurred, they all heard the unmistakable sound of multiple vehicles approaching at high speed across the base. Heavy engines, moving fast, coming up the access road toward their classified facility. The distinctive whine of turbocharged diesel engines pushed to their absolute limits, creating dust clouds visible through the security windows. The convoy screeched to a halt outside the facility with the urgency of a national security response. Heavy doors slammed simultaneously, and the sound of military boots on concrete echoed through the suddenly silent training room. Lieutenant Commander Jackson stood frozen as senior personnel emerged from vehicles with purpose and authority that made his stomach drop. Master Chief Valdez stepped out quickly from the lead vehicle, followed by several other senior NCOs Jackson didn't recognize. But everyone's attention immediately focused on the second vehicle, where a full captain was climbing out with an expression of profound respect mixed with urgent concern. Captain Sarah Mitchell was 51 years old and commanded Naval Special Warfare Group 1, overseeing all West Coast SEAL operations. Her unexpected personal arrival at a routine training exercise was unprecedented, causing every SEAL in the facility to snap to rigid attention. Captain Mitchell walked directly toward Morrison, completely ignoring Jackson and the other SEALs as if they were invisible obstacles. When Captain Mitchell reached Morrison's position beside the open safe, something remarkable happened. The captain came to rigid attention and rendered the sharpest, most precise salute that anyone present had ever witnessed in their entire military careers. Senior Chief Petty Officer Harold Morrison, United States Navy SEAL Team 2, retired, Captain Mitchell said, her voice booming across the suddenly silent facility with authority that made every person present freeze in place. Sir, on behalf of the United States Navy and Naval Special Warfare Command, I apologize for the inexcusable disrespect shown to you here today. Morrison slowly returned the salute from his position beside the safe, movement still precise despite his age. Captain, no apology necessary. These sailors were conducting legitimate training and protecting classified materials. The captain held her salute for 5 full seconds before dropping her hand with military precision. Lieutenant Commander Jackson felt his knees go weak as reality crashed over him like a cold wave. Senior Chief Petty Officer was a highly respected enlisted rank, and Morrison's SEAL team background explained his uncanny knowledge of classified penetration techniques. Captain Mitchell turned to address the stunned SEALs and training personnel who had gathered to witness the unprecedented scene. "Sailors, allow me to introduce Senior Chief Harold Safecracker Morrison. He holds the Navy record for fastest classified penetration, 14 seconds to crack a Soviet embassy safe during a joint CIA operation in 1983. He is also a recipient of the Navy Cross, Silver Star, and 3 Purple Hearts." Captain Mitchell continued, her voice growing more respectful as she looked at Morrison with obvious admiration. "Senior Chief Morrison's innovations in mechanical safe penetration techniques are still classified at levels above most of your clearances. His ability to defeat security systems using fundamental mechanical principles rather than electronic bypasses saved countless intelligence operations during the Cold War." Morrison shifted uncomfortably beside the open safe, clearly uncomfortable with the public praise and attention he had never sought during his years of quiet service. "Captain," Morrison said quietly, his voice carrying the humble dignity that had characterized his entire career, "these young sailors just need to understand that every security system has mechanical principles that don't change, regardless of how sophisticated the electronics become. When you understand the fundamentals, the solutions become obvious." Captain Mitchell nodded knowingly, then reached into her briefcase and withdrew a small wooden presentation box along with a laminated identification card. "Senior Chief Morrison, this is your permanent facility access authorization that should have been issued 10 years ago when you began working here as a contractor." She handed Morrison the card, then opened the wooden box revealing the Navy Cross with its distinctive blue and white ribbon. "This belongs with you, not in some Pentagon storage facility where bureaucrats can lose track of our heroes." Morrison looked down at the medal, with emotions playing across his weathered features. "I thought that was lost decades ago, Captain. I figured the paperwork got buried somewhere in the system after my discharge." Captain Mitchell carefully pinned the Navy Cross to Morrison's faded red work shirt, the bronze cross looking oddly appropriate against the humble fabric. Morrison slowly rolled up his sleeve again, revealing his faded seal trident tattoo. Captain Mitchell smiled knowingly and began rolling up her own sleeve. As the fabric moved up her arm, another tattoo became visible, the same trident design, but crisp and clear, obviously much newer. "This tattoo, sailors," the captain said, displaying her arm next to Morrison's, "represents membership in a brotherhood that values silent professionalism and precision over brute force. I earned mine at Bud's in 1995, carrying on traditions established by men like Senior Chief Morrison." Lieutenant Commander Jackson stepped forward, his voice barely above a whisper as the full weight of his disrespect became clear. "Senior Chief Morrison, I was completely out of line. I apologize for my disrespect and failure to recognize your service and expertise." Morrison gave him a genuine smile that held no trace of anger or resentment. "Son, you were protecting classified materials and following established security procedures. That's exactly what a good SEAL officer should do. The system failed you by not properly briefing you on my background." Captain Mitchell nodded approvingly. "For the next week, Senior Chief Morrison will conduct advanced mechanical penetration training with this team. Lieutenant Commander Jackson, you will assist and coordinate the training schedule." As Morrison prepared to return to his maintenance duties, now wearing the Navy Cross on his faded red shirt, Jackson finally understood that true expertise often comes disguised as ordinary competence, and that the greatest operators understand fundamental principles rather than just relying on sophisticated equipment.